Now, Australia is going to send a surveillance aircraft, 85 personnel and air-to-air missiles to the United Arab Emirates to help defend the Gulf states in the Middle East. The Prime Minister said this morning that this is an effort to help protect the thousands of Australians in the region, but it's clearly also a strategic move by our government. The key question from an economic perspective is how long will the Strait of Hormuz remain closed, cutting off oil and gas from the rest of the world? I spoke to defence expert Jennifer Parker, who served in the Royal Australian Navy for 20 years, a little bit earlier.
Well, it's important that Australia is sending personnel to the Middle East, but I think, yes, the contribution we're providing, an airborne early warning aircraft and some missile stocks, it's not a tokenistic deployment. It is a significant contribution to the defence, but it is not large numbers of personnel in any way, shape or form. It certainly provides greater awareness of what is happening in that airspace. Our aircraft is one of the best in the world at being able to detect and track drones and missiles. And certainly the missile inventory will help the UAE, but it is not a large-scale contribution.
Yeah, the Prime Minister's spoken about the thousands of Aussies stuck in the Middle East, and he's used them as one of the main reasons why these defence assets need to be deployed. I mean, is this targeted contribution then the right move for us?
Yeah, look, I don't know if the Prime Minister said that. I'm not sure that's the main reason Australia is contributing this. I mean, it helps, and of course, the disruption to the global economy, the disruption to air routes has been a factor in this. But I think that when it comes to the UAE, for example, the UAE has long supported Australia. We have a quasi base there. They've supported all of our operations in the Middle East for decades. So certainly it is appropriate that we help defend the UAE and other countries that are under constant missile and drone barrages. It also is a good opportunity, and contextualise those words in terms of nothing to do with conflict is good, but it is an opportunity for the ADF to hone its skills in the detection of missiles and drones, which is a key modern element of warfare that we will need experience in.
Yeah, how big a learning experience has this recent war in Iran been for the ADF? I know there were some defence personnel on that submarine last week as well that sunk that ship in the Indian Ocean.
Look, any time that ADF personnel are in an area like this, they certainly gain a lot of understanding. Also, of course, through our relationships with the US as part of the Five Eyes network, we also get a lot of, understanding of how they are dealing with new threats through that. Look, I think that Australia has gained significant experience in the dealing with tracking of missiles and drones through its provision of one of these airborne early warning aircraft to Europe in the last couple of years, which has provided overwatch of Ukrainian airspace. I suspect the crews that are going to the Middle East now to operate this aircraft probably have some degree of experience there, but still it'll help upskill the ADF. Now, that is not a reason to deploy. It is one of the, secondary benefits. The key reason here is there are Gulf states that we have relationships, long-standing relationships with, that are under constant missile and barrage attacks from Iran. These Gulf states are not participants in this international armed conflict, and they have not attacked Iran.
You mentioned energy prices. We've obviously seen big rises in oil and gas over the past week, really since the conflict kicked off. I mean, at what point do the economic costs of this war become too great?
Well, look, I think the US would have closely modelled the impact of ships not going through the Strait and what that does to energy and oil prices. Clearly, this is front of mind for President Trump. The press conference he gave about a number of hours ago now talks about oil prices. Look, I don't think we're going to see a reduction in flow through the Strait for a prolonged period, probably still for a few weeks. But once we get to the point where Iran's ballistic missile and drone capability has been severely reduced, their ability to hit ships in that region will be significantly reduced. We've got to remember, too, that their navy has pretty much been destroyed. And that's why we're seeing countries like France talk about, well, will they send forces through once this intensity of the operation is done to help escort tankers through? I'm not sure how successful that will necessarily be. It is difficult to conduct escorts through the Strait of Hormuz, having looked at this. But I think that we will see ships start to flow through in the coming weeks. So I don't think this is a prolonged closure or reduced flow through. Is that having an impact on the global economy? Yes. Was that predictable? Yes. Is this a long-term impact? I would suggest not.
Yeah, how do you think the opening of the Strait would work in actual practice? If there was, escorting tankers, would you be escorting a large group at once, or would it be a small group of tankers? How would that actually work?
Yeah, look, this is not entirely clear, and this is why I'm a little skeptical of the idea of escorts. A large group is generally called convoy operations. That's not a good idea in a war zone like this, so close to Iran's coast. When you get ships to pull together before you transit through, that just becomes a big target. I honestly can't see this happening. I know that the US president has said that they're going to escort ships. I know the French president's now said it. I can't see this happening until there is a significant reduction in the amount of ballistic missiles and drones that Iran is likely to fire. Even then, a lot of those ships waiting to go through flag to a range of different countries. I'm not sure French and US ships are going to be supporting tankers that have no connection to their state going through the Strait of Hormuz. The strait itself is not actually closed. It's not militarily closed. It's not blockaded. The Iranian forces no longer have a navy. They have an asymmetric navy, but that's not entirely effective. What's happened here is that deterred ships from going through. There are some, not many. On average, you'd have 120 to 130 going through the Strait of Hormuz a daily. Now, it's 4, 5, or 6. It's hard to count because most going through are going through dark, so they're not using their transponders to tell people that they are there. I think really the only way we're going to increase flow through is, again, a reduction in the missile capability Iran has, a reduction in the drone capability, and building confidence in the shipping industry that it is safe to go through. We're nowhere near that yet.
Jennifer Parker, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much.